did Dragon's Den, we all suggested different ideas. George, Shannon and I, we were like, okay, we could do this, we could do this. And we not inevitably, I don't suppose, but we eventually settled on Dice Tower. And it was very much my idea, and it was very much a passion project for me, I think, because I've always loved board games. And going to board game cafe is something that I absolutely adore. And playing those games is great for me.
It's a really interesting one to do because I think the board game community is a really cool kind of area to look into. It's got a lot of interesting people and a lot of diversity, creativity, and getting to write about that was quite fun, to be honest.
I think we all knew when we saw Chris present at Dragon's Den that it was something that he was very passionate about, and I think we all had a feeling then that if it did win, that it would be very successful.
This magazine project was really cool because it gave us something to write about, something to pass the time while we're in lockdown. But also, I think board gaming, there are articles in there that show that board gaming can work for individual people on their own as well. And you can also get online through virtual tabletop simulations and enjoy yourself that way as well. So it's actually a really interesting topic to look into at this moment in time, despite it being a traditionally communal round the table experience.
Creating Dice Tower during lockdown was challenging as we were all having to work remotely using social media to stay in contact. But this was made easier by having checklists on spreadsheets that we could all access to input what we were doing and when we had completed it.
The magazine ran really smoothly. I think it's because we had a strong leader in Chris and he had a clear vision of what he needed to do. The team worked together and we all tried to help as much as possible. It felt like a real magazine production, and it's something that we should all be proud of, the final outcome, because it looks great.
I think working together as a group on a creative project is really useful. If you're working on your own, you can quite easily dismiss your own ideas or leave something unfinished and move on to something else. But presenting your ideas to a group, you can get inspiration and motivation that you wouldn't just get from yourself.
Making a magazine in sort of any circumstances is pretty difficult, but I think having to cope with the lockdown at the same time made this one sort of particularly difficult. So the way it was done really from my end was just a lot of emails, a lot of Skype calls with Chris and George, sending files backwards and forwards. Eventually we discovered Google Docs and Google Drive, which made everything a lot easier. But I think the main benefit that I've got from it, like in this situation, is being able to keep my mind occupied, something to create, something to think about constantly, and not just being isolated.
I'm finding being motivated quite hard during the lockdown for a bunch of reasons, like everyone is, I think, across the world. And so having to do an 800-word feature when you really don't want to do anything was quite a challenge. But yeah, so it was good and bad. Good because I like to be kept busy, and the saving grace of being in lockdown for me is being kept busy, but some days you just don't want to do anything.
It's a great time to pick up a new hobby, We're all extremely bored and trapped, and so why not start playing games?
I wrote the news section and wrote a quiz for the online content. I'm proud of the news section because I had to actively work hard to use my journalistic instinct to find stories about a topic I've never really written about before or been particularly interested in before.
I did all of the social media for Dice Tower, which was a bit of a challenge, especially as I'm kind of a newcomer to the scene. I didn't really know what would do well, what tags to use or who to tag in posts. But after a bit of research, I think it actually went really well. A lot of our content was shared and retweeted by tabletop gaming communities, which was really nice to see, and it obviously shows that what we were producing is readable for that audience.
I think the biggest challenge for me was when creating the articles was the phone interviews. I much prefer to interview people face to face, just because I feel it makes it easier to write the article. It makes it easier to set the scene, to get the tone, and you get a real feel of who your interviewee is, and you're able to bring them to life through the article. Whereas I think it's much harder to do that when you have phone interviews. It can be a little bit awkward at first, and I feel like you don't feel as connected to the other person. So I think that was a bit of a struggle. I just much prefer face-to-face interviews in general.
In terms of applications, I was probably good at using by the end of it. I'd probably say InDesign, given the fact we have a lot of issues with InDesign. Using it from home was a bit difficult, given that everybody is obviously trying to work on the same documents. We had to upload them to the cloud and then down again, trying to get people to be using different fonts, different images. By the end of it, me and Chloe Weldon were putting everything in, making sure it all looked alright, and then I did all the final checks and everything as well. So I'd say probably got pretty good at InDesign by the end of it, and it's quite a good thing. I quite enjoy doing InDesign stuff because I was quite happy chilling in the spreads just looking at stuff.
I basically spent the whole production time working on InDesign, as I was designing the templates for the pages of the magazine with Shannon, ready for the copy to be put in. At first, me, Chris and Shannon had a couple of meetings on Teams, and we spoke regularly on a group chat just to make sure we were sort of all on the same page about how we wanted the magazine to look, like with the colours and the fonts, just so that we were all aware of what each of us were doing, if we were happy with how we were each getting on and things like that. I think the hardest, most challenging part was because we'd come up with the method that I was designing the first half of the magazine and Shannon was designing the second half, was that we were both designing all the templates in the same style throughout, with like the fonts and the layouts of the text matching, the sizes of the text being the same. So I'm glad and I'm proud that we actually managed to pull that off.
Found out we were going to be making a magazine about tabletop gaming, I was not excited. It's not a subject I know anything about. It's not even a subject anyone I know knows anything about, really. So the hardest part for me was definitely just starting. I didn't even know where to begin. For the print edition, I was given the task of reviewing a game, any game that I wanted, and I didn't even know where to find a game, let alone play it and write about it. Now that it's over, I'm kind of sad, really. I feel like everyone's done such a great job. I'm proud of the whole thing. I mean, if you had told me a couple months ago that I would be writing multiple pieces of content about tabletop gaming, I would have just laughed, because I don't think I even knew what tabletop gaming meant a couple months ago. But here we are.
Working remotely away from everybody was really tough. I hope we can all come together and play a virtual game at some point, so it would be really fun and give us time to further test out the games we've all written about.
I really enjoyed reading the article because it showed me something I could do in my free time, which doesn't involve screens, phones, computers and stuff like that, which I think it's quite fun and nice these days to spend time differently than being stuck on your phone or something.
The magazine has opened my eyes, because before I'd played a few board games or party games, but now I feel like a fully fledged member of the community. I have a few board games in mind that I'd want to buy and play with in the future, and Dice Tower is probably a magazine that I'd buy myself now that I'm a fan. But it's definitely changed my outlook on board games, and it's made me see that board games have a positive community, and that it shouldn't be negatively stereotyped as it is. It's a community that people should be proud of.
I personally never thought I'd enjoy tabletop gaming, because it's kind of seen as this really geeky thing that only young boys who play video games and watch Lord of the Rings every week play, but actually that's not true, which I wrote about in a blog, because I'd already played tabletop games. One of my favourite games to play, called Hive, is a tabletop game, And I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was not that far from your usual family games like Monopoly. And I think that it's really, really good that we've all found something that we actually enjoy and have enjoyed writing about and learning about.
I found it challenging to get engaged with the topic initially, but I forced myself to crack on with it and actually ended up finding it really interesting. I never really focused on many specific games during the research and the writing section of it, but doing the project on board games, which is such a new topic to me, has actually made me want to go out and try some board games, maybe at like a board game cafe or on one of the nights. I have quite a few friends that play them, so maybe I'll be hosting a board game night soon, who knows.
I'm quite an old school gamer. I'm still stuck in the backgammon and Scrabble years, so I had a little bit of trepidation when we were starting out. But I realised that there's a massive variety of games out there that are really imaginative, and there's something for everyone.
The main thing that I'm proud of in the whole thing is even though a lot of us are hundreds of miles apart in a lot of cases, we still managed to consistently roll out really professional looking, high quality content, both in the print magazine and online. So I think that's really a testament to how hard everyone's worked.
I'm really proud of what we've achieved with Dice Tower. I think that coming from a space where a lot of us at first didn't know even what tabletop gaming was or anything about this sector, and now we all know a lot more, and we've been able to publish content that's really informative, well written and professional, and I think that's amazing.
It feels great that the magazine has finally been published and it looks as good as we'd all hoped. It's quite uplifting to work on a big project in a team under these circumstances. I sort of found it more motivating because although we weren't in the same room, like I was still eager to get it done, like to such a high standard. And it took my mind off a lot as I was keeping myself busy.
Looking at it, it looks like something I'd pick up and read, and looking at it, it looks like all the other gaming mags that are out there, but more unique to us. So that's exactly what I wanted, and it's perfect. So I really don't have a problem with it, and I think it's the most wonderful thing I've created. It's definitely the best thing that I've done at uni so far, so I'm really happy with it.